Hello, friends. Steve Taylor. I really appreciate you guys tuning in to our channel. It's a new effort for us. We're trying to put out these YouTube videos with different thoughts that we have on different things that are happening that hopefully, you'll find helpful for your life and your business and let us know. Let us know, give us feedback, let us know what's happening. So this month, I want to talk about what really has been in the news for about the past year and a half, right? Not a year and a half, but almost is a recession coming? Is winter coming for all you Game of Thrones fans, right? So, there's lots of talk out there in the media. The recession's coming, the economic slowdown. We see the stock market kind of many times it can be, a leading indicator of what might be to come. But, the question is the recession coming? Are we in a recession? And really more than anything, what I like to talk about today is kind of how can you prepare yourself for that? How can you prepare yourself for any kind of slowdown, right? Any kind of slowdown, any kind of uncertainty. What are the three things you should do in your personal life and your business life to kind of get prepared for that? So really what applies at all times in all situations, but now sometimes we get forced into this, is we really should look at three things, right? In both our business and our personal, it's spending, it's debt, and it's savings, right? And all starts with those three topics, right? To kind of go through that. So I don't know about you guys, but in my business and my personal life, really around this time of the year, more so through January, is we look at and we say, hey, what happened? What was good? What was bad? What are we thinking about here? Going forward. On that note, we've really implemented what's called the EOS system in our business. It's been really helpful to help us plan of what's coming out there. But when we look at our numbers, many times we'll see where were we profitable? Where are we profitable or not? Where were we where were we spending? And how did that really, more than anything, how did that flow through, whether you're a business owner or not? How does that flow through to your personal bottom line? Because that's a challenge that really I've had, my family, we've had our whole life, right? I've been working for and doing this for myself for many years. When I was an attorney, the income and the revenue was more unpredictable than now as a financial advisor. But even at that, it's, no one really likes to be under a hardcore budget. No one likes to be told what they can't do. No one likes to be restrictive. But it's really, it's really important to get an idea of what you're spending, right? So that's where it starts. So if you haven't tracked, you should start tracking, whether your business or personal. Let's go through this type of year and say, hey, what did we spend on last year? Where did it go? Okay. Really try to break it down to your allocation percentages. If it's your business, I've been reading a really helpful book recently called Profit First. He talks about, putting creating the actual accounts to flow your monies into to give you a better reading of what you're doing. But he talks about these four accounts: is could be owners, compensation. What should you allocate in your business to pay for your taxes? What are all your different, operating expenses that you go through? And then what's your profit, right? Create those four buckets to kind of go through. So, number one is kind of go through that. I'll put a link down to the book. You can go through. There's a whole process to go through to kind of, create those budgets and those allocations. But then when you look at that owner's occupation, and that comes out to you personally, where is your spending going there, right? Are you spending is in line to what your priorities are, okay? So this is not a time to sit back and go through and chastise yourself. Say, I did this wrong, I did that wrong, whatever it might be. That's not what it is. It is to see where is your spending and where may you need to make some allocations for improvements, okay? Now, in this Profit First book that I recommend to you below, and I've done versions of it myself in the past, and I think it's a good idea. It talks about making allocations of accounts, for you to put your monies into for what you're spending so that you don't go beyond that spending. Talks about maybe your home and automobile and other expenses, create one account. Entertainment, create kind of a separate account. And then savings, we'll talk about, create a different savings account, but really to see and allocate those monies going through it. Because what's so hard when you're looking at one account and you have maybe not, you're really good with it. Maybe you're an accountant, whatever it might be. When you have it all in one account, you think you know where the money's going, but you really don't, right? So this is the time to set that apart and go through that and allocate that. What some people have done also, and kind of an old school, means of doing this is create envelopes, right? That's where the Profit First is his story starts, where his family, his mother put the envelopes and puts cash in all those envelopes so that they know that once you've spent, when there's no more cash in that envelope, there's no more money allocated there. But he talks about really forcing yourself to create that savings, that emergency fund envelope, and to only go to that in the most dire circumstances. But that's a really helpful system, right? So you really feel, no matter what you're doing, that you are taking your profit first. You're making sure that all the expenses aren't ruling you versus you being ruled by what's coming in income-wise, and go through that. And that's something I've really, it's been a challenge really for many years in my life. And even to this day, in this year, when we go through it, is how do I make my spending allocations based on what I'm making and not what I'm spending? And that goes into the idea of credit cards, right? The credit cards, the whole concept behind the credit card is the spend first, pay later. So you spend, you don't really know what you spent on, and then you got to fill that up and pay off that debt so that you don't pay any interest on it, right? Credit cards are really dangerous, and we all do it, especially, for us, and probably you have kids, and kids go in and they get the credit card, and then how are they spending? And no one really feels that spending, whatever they might be. So when you're trying to get your spending under control, continuing to use your credit cards as you always have, it's really, really challenging. It just is, right? Yes, you can come through after the fact and see what happens, but you're constantly playing catch up. So what they talk about, and a good theory and a good strategy is to create these bucket accounts, and in your personal spending, use debit cards, right? I just went into Chase Bank today and I looked at it, and they have an actual an account where you're not going to get any overdraft fees. They want you to spend on your debit card, and if you go beyond it, it just stops, right? It declines that expenditure. So that's a really good strategy. You got to put these forking mechanisms in place so that you're putting some kind of hard stop, like something comes down and says, whoop, I violated that, right? More so than just feeling it, because we don't feel it. We don't feel it, and we justify, and it goes through. So, many of us will come and say, well, I want to use a credit card to get the points. How valuable really are the points? Honestly, if you pay 1 month worth of interest on your credit card where you didn't pay off the entire balance, that negates the benefit of all your points together, right? So really try to take a hard and fast look there. I'm not saying maybe go zero on credit cards, but be careful of putting it all on the credit card to create these mechanisms. So the second part of this, really, when you're looking at potentially a downturn or maybe lower income, whatever it might be, is look at your debt, right? Manage all your debt. So if you have debt, number one, that is an indicator that, hey, I spent more than I made, right? So that's the first step. And a lot of us say, well, it was only one time, and I'm going to catch up, and all all those different excuses out there. Listen, dollars speak in this regards. If you have debt, you outspent your income. All right. So number one, a great strategy to try to take care of your debt, especially if it's across different credit cards or different items, is go for really try to get small wins and pay off the lowest balance debt, even before, believe it or not, the higher interest rate ones. What's that going to do is that's going to teach you, you're going to get this win, you're going to feel good, that debt is gone, and it's going to create this snowball effect to go and pay off the rest of your debt. All right. Many people or financial advisors, I've done it in the past, let me just go consolidate and pay off the highest debt ones, but then insidiously you have the lower, it's a lower rate, but a higher balance because you're not focused on that. And maybe at the end of the day, you're honestly paying the total dollar amount more of interest than whatever you might get. Because remember, you're trying to avoid any of the interest paid at this point, because in this kind of cycle, this recession, interest rates are going up. So where it cost you a certain amount of interest before, that's now almost doubled. Like, I don't know, for any of you that have home equity lines of credit, I have one. My interest rate doubled in this last year. Basically, I had a little bit of a balance on that. And I said, forget that. Let me pay that off. And that goes to another point, that if you have money sitting in savings with zero to low interest rate, and you have debt in a certain accounts, try to pay that off, because the debt interest paid will many times be 5, 6, 7 times almost of what you're getting on your interest account. So really look at that. That's a nice strategy to get into. And then finally, look at your savings, right? So if you're setting yourself up, you're allocating your money, you're paying off your debt, you should have savings accounts that are being set up for you. Okay. And look at those. Where do you have those? Number one, in your business, that could be what's called a profit account. Okay, that's there for future expenses, future benefits, whatever that might be. But then personally, that can be your emergency fund, right? And do you have your emergency fund there? Is that in place to pay for any unexpected expenses or a further downturn of income or whatever it might be? Because remember, what we're trying to do in this period is we're trying to avoid interest, because interest has greatly increased, okay? And we're trying to get our spending and our activities in line with what we're making. Because if we can get that habit in place, especially in the downturn, and you stick to those allocations that you made, guess what? Your income goes up, your allocations remain the same, your savings accumulate. Now you have different things you can do. You can, go on that bigger vacation. You can do that addition to the house or whatever it might be. So we have some resources below here in the chat box that we put together for getting ready for a downturn in business or personal, whatever it might be. And otherwise, do the research on your own. Go out there, look into it, talk with your friends, create accountability partners, right? Especially if you don't have anybody else, if you don't have a business partner or family members that are holding your feet to the fire, you need to set up that accountability partner. If we're talking about your personal life and you are married, that accountability partner must be your significant other. It must be. There's no question. However, if you run your own business, which many times happens to me, create an accountability partner. Start different conversations out there with other business owners that are going through the same thing as you are. And remember, there's no shame in here. We each have, go through different cycles of business, and to be someone you can be really open and transparent with, because you'd be surprised. They're probably in the same boat as you. But to go there and try to create these forcing mechanisms to help you get to where you need to be. So I hope you found this helpful. If you do, please like or subscribe. Please let us know any other topics you'd like us to talk about, and have a great day.